Hey everyone, it's Ron Johnson, and this is the Ron Johnson Show on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcast Network. Game 1 in the books. Super excited to talk about Kevin O'Connell's offense. What was different? What made this team so different that the Packers couldn't figure it out? Stay tuned on the Ron Johnson Show for that.
On the field, in the broadcast booth, Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. One-of-a-kind opinions, big-name guests, the teams you care about every day. It's the Ron Johnson Show, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and it starts now.
Hey, it's Ron Johnson, and welcome to the Ron Johnson Show. This is the Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcast Network, as I stated before. Before I jump into this whole Kevin O'Connell era of the Minnesota Vikings offense, remember, when you subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota, you're getting endless Vikings talk with local experts. Subscribe to the free Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts, and find our videos on Locked On Sports Minnesota channel. You'll get endless Vikings talk with local experts, and now we're offering new podcasts about your favorite football team because it's football season. The Minnesota Football Party brings together Arif Hassan, Luke Inman, Luke Braun, and Sam Exner to talk Vikings on Mondays and Thursdays. Find the show wherever you get your podcasts, again, by subscribing to Locked On Sports Minnesota or watch our show on YouTube channel. Well, as I bring my producer to the show, Sam Ekstrom, I'm excited because all offseason, we've been building up to this moment. We've been building up to the Kevin O'Connell, putting the headset on, getting the plays into Kirk Cousins. We've been building up to what Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins will look like. We were scared off a little bit by the Rams opening against the Bills. Everybody's like, oh, crap, is this what we're going to get? Like, is this what we're going to get? Not this. But this is what I think. Was Kevin O'Connell the mastermind helping Sean McVay? Was he the wizard
sauce?
Was he the wizard behind the curtain? You know, did Matthew Stafford click his heels 3 times and now he's back in Kansas? There's no more craziness out there. Is Kevin O'Connell right back where he belongs as a head coach? As a former quarterback, you watch guys like Dan Orlovsky break down plays and do it with precision. Why? Because they were always in the headset working with the quarterback, starting to help him get better. You look at Matthew Stafford with Kevin O'Connell, a former quarterback. So as a backup, he knew exactly. He's heard from the Jets. He's heard from Belichick with the Patriots. Bart Scott said he's one of the smartest guys he knows. He's one of the grittiest quarterbacks he knows. And then all of a sudden now he's a head coach. It looks like it's working. Like he's getting Kirk Cousins to the line of scrimmage with precision. He's getting Kirk Cousins to the line of scrimmage with time. Before I explain why it works so well, Sam, what did you think about the game?
I mean, it's hard to complain if you're a Vikings fan about that result. All 3 phases, offense, defense, special teams, the Vikings were the better team. You flustered Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I'd say equally as encouraging as the Vikings' performance is that now their chief competitor in the division, Green Bay, has problems. I mean, they've got big injury problems on that offensive line. Rodgers looks super frustrated with his young receivers, and he doesn't have a safety net. On a big 4th down play, he doesn't have anyone who he's comfortable throwing to, especially, wide receivers. He seemed to be really reliant on his running backs and tight ends in the passing game, and doesn't have that nice little blankie that he can kind of fall on when he needs a completion. And that was Devontae Adams. He's not around anymore. Marquez Valdes-Scantling's not around anymore. So that comfortable sort of cocoon that he was in before, it's no longer there. So the Vikings have a lot to be pumped about on their end, and the Packers look to be a little bit more vulnerable. But I loved the way that Kirk looked yesterday. His connection with Jefferson was really natural, and I thought he actually moved in the pocket pretty well, Ron. I thought that he was stepping up in the pocket. He was buying an extra second to make a couple extra throws. So that to me is really encouraging for Kirk, who's never been a strength of his to extend the play like that.
Yeah, and when you look at Aaron Rodgers, 22 for 34, 195 yards, an interception, 16.1 QBR. Kirk Cousins, on the other hand, 23 for 32, 277 yards. So he completed 23 passes, and Aaron Rodgers completed 22. So only one more pass was completed by Kirk. but he completely blew him out of the water almost by 100 yards. He had 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He did take 1 sack, but he had an 80.7 QBR. 80.7 QBR. That and the
Huge.
QBR, they take into account under pressure. They take into account check downs. They could take into account getting out of the pocket, pocket presence, throwing the ball away. All that stuff is taken into account. So 80.7, Kirk did work. Dalvin Cook had a silent 90 yards. Like that 90 yards was so quiet. You got a Justin Jefferson with 9 catches, 184 yards. No Packers receivers were even close to 100 yards. Their best receiver was 46, which was their running back. Their rookie led the way with 37 yards. Romeo Doubs, a guy that I said was really good when he was at Nevada, back when I covered them on FS1, when they played New Mexico State. Also saw them play, I think, San Diego State, and he was an absolute beast. They played, who else did they play? They played a couple teams I did. I did like 2 or 3 of their games. And I said he was good then. When you look at Jordan Hicks, 14 tackles, led the team. Harrison Smith went up top and intercepted the ball over Randall Cobb. He mossed him. Usually the receiver is the one mossing the DB. No. Harrison Smith mossed Randall Cobb. I hope Randy uses that in You Got Moss segment because he loves his purple. He might do Justin Jefferson, but I don't think Justin Jefferson truly mossed anybody, but Harrison Smith did, so maybe he'll give some love. I might have to tag him and give him some love to make sure he sees that so he can put that in the You Got Moss segment that Randall Cobb got mossed by Harrison Smith, and hopefully he gives me the credit because I know he's not thinking about it. And I'll pay off the tease. This is why Kevin O'Connell's offense was so effective. Not better, just more effective. And the Packers couldn't really figure it out all the time. One, there were a ton of crossing routes. And I'm talking about double, triple crossing routes. Like there was one where Irv went right, Thielen went left, and then Justerson went between the two. So there was like a triple rub where if you make a mistake and pick the wrong guy we're rubbing, you're going to, and it was just Kirk Cousins picking his poison. Like if they had dropped back into coverage, Irv Smith is wide open in the flat. And again, that's kind of like, here's a treat. You got a secondary guy coming behind it. Nobody covered Justin Jefferson. Touchdown. Yak after the catch. The man is nasty in open space. But the splits. When you see where Justin Jefferson was lined up, he was lined up at times 2 to 3 yards inside the numbers, and he was the outside receiver. We call it a nasty split. His split did not help them figure out the route. From nasty, because of the way he can shimmy off the line of scrimmage, get you wide, get inside, shout out to the receiver factory. And then he made him think I'm going right, and then he turned left. He was able to run a dig route from a nasty split. 2 things about a dig route from a nasty split. One, you're already close to the guy that's going to blow you up, which is the backer or the safety. So Kirk Cousins has got to be on time with it, and he was timely. I mean, as minute Justin Jefferson broke, the ball was in the air. So Darnell Savage had no time to react. Like, that's what I love about this defense, about this offense, is that Kirk Cousins was on point. He was throwing the ball on the money. I saw a quote from Jair Alexander saying, I told coach all week, I want that matchup. Let me go one-on-one. Put him on Alexander's island. But nope, it's about the team. It's not about me. That's what he said. So clearly he wasn't happy with the game plan. And he said, if I was on Justin Jefferson the entire game, you know what I'd be doing, which we don't know what you'd be doing. But I guess in his mind, he'd have been shutting Justin Jefferson down, and he wouldn't have had 184 yards. Looks like they went zone a lot, on some of those plays because they just couldn't figure out this offense, and they didn't want him to get rubbed off man-to-man and just get killed by Justin Jefferson. So maybe the coach was saving him the embarrassment and trying to protect him. Kids don't often understand when a parent says, no, don't do that. No, we're not going to do that, friend. You're going to give that to me. Give that to me, friend. No, you cannot have a knife right now. You can't. No, you cannot plug that into the socket. You're standing in a bottle of water. You just got out the tub. Get your hands away from that. No, friend. Get away from the oven. It's hot. Kids don't understand that. And that's what I feel like the defensive coordinator was doing for Jair Alexander. He's like, no, friend. No, friend. No, we're not going to leave you on an island with Justin Jefferson. But, friend, let me tell you, Justin Jefferson, it wouldn't have went the way you thought it would have went, friend. We don't want you to be hurt. We don't want to see you embarrassed. We're trying to protect you. We want you to grow and be a big, strong cornerback one day, friend. No. You can't have Justin Jefferson. But no. You're not going to turn away from me. Come back here. We're not going to have Justin Jefferson today. You're going to play zone and just deal with it. We're going to let your other friends get to play with Justin Jefferson on the team. This is not, no, you got to share Justin Jefferson with everybody else, friend. And that's what the coaches were doing for him. They were sharing. Share Justin Jefferson. You can't have him by yourself. You're not ready for that yet. But maybe, I don't know, at the end of the year, when they come back and play the Packers again, maybe they'll give him what he wants. Like maybe they will. Hey, you want him? Take him. Let's see. Because sometimes as a parent, you got to let your kids, have fun dangerously sometimes to see what happens. Maybe they survive the jump from the top of the slide. Maybe they bust their lip. Either way, they're going to learn. And you're going to learn together. But that's what the Packers have to wait and do. But Kevin O'Connell's offense, it was spectacular. Like I've said this for years, I hate vanilla offenses. Like when I watch the 49ers and I watch the Bengals and I watch the Justin Herbert, the Chargers. I love that. I love the shifts and motions because it doesn't allow the defense to get set. It's like, where's Waldo with Justin Jefferson, Kevin O'Connell saying, you got to figure out where we're going to put him. We're never going to put him in the same spot. We don't want you to figure it out. Find them and then figure out what you're going to do with them. They couldn't handle it. But up next, I'm excited about this. We got Leo Lewis coming on the Hanging with Ron Johnson segment. And before we jump to the Hanging with Ron Johnson segment, we got a word from our sponsors.
BetOnline.net, your number one source for all your pro and college betting needs and sports info this season. Find all the latest football league developments, game matchups, news, and podcasts, and all the lines on the games next week. Early line at betonline.net has the Vikings as 2-point underdogs in Philly, and they're putting an over-under of 52 on this game. They're expecting a shootout on Monday night. BetOnline is also your continued source for all sports wagering info, and that includes MMA, boxing, and golf as well. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Well, up next on the Ron Johnson Show, the Hanging with Ron Johnson segment, I got former Vikings receiver, former Missouri receiver as well, Leo Lewis. Leo Lewis spent some time working for the Gophers. He worked for the Vikings. He's an alumnus of the Vikings as well, played receiver for the Browns and the Vikings. Saw Leo Lewis yesterday at the game. So when I'm very organic with how I do my guests. I don't plan it out. I don't have a list. I mean, I have a list, but I like to catch guys when I know they've seen the game and I know they've been around it. And Leo is one. So Leo, out the gate, you were at the game with the alumni. I saw Willie Howard up in there. I saw Chuck Foreman, who did the Vikings game day live with me this off season with myself and Don Mitchell. And looking at you at the game, a guy like Justin Jefferson, 184 yards. Has a breakout, kind of game. And we already know he's great, but it was just like a coming out party with him and Kirk Cousins and Kevin O'Connell in this office. Adam Thielen, unfortunately, suffered, only had 3 because of that performance. But when you see that as a former receiver, with the team, what did that feel like to watch a receiver just go off like that?
Yeah. Jefferson certainly is the new era receiver where, because passing is so evident in the pro game now, he's the epitome of what you want in a receiver. He's not the best receiver I've seen, but he's going to be one of the greatest. And hopefully we can keep him. We got to make it to the playoffs and we can keep him as a Viking.
Yeah. So thinking about that, I don't want to think ahead. I'm taking the PJ Fleck method, which is this is now the 0-0 Eagles championship week. Packers are done. We're not going to talk playoffs because it's just, because when you said that in my mind, I forgot who that was. I think it was the Colts coach. Was it Mora that did the playoffs? We're not going to talk playoffs just yet. But thinking about Kevin O'Connell, new culture, you've been around a bunch of culture changes from the Gophers with athletic directors and coaches in football to the Vikings and everything. I mean, you've been here, you've seen Zim, you've seen Leslie Frazier, Brad Childress, now Kevin O'Connell. Early thoughts about this game and just the player interaction stuff you're seeing on social media. What's your early thought about the culture of this team now?
Yeah. Well, it's good to have a young coach, someone with some new ideas who's been successful at earlier stages in his career. And it's always good to generate new belief, vitality, and to create a culture which he believes is best for the players. So he I think is going to be a great players coach. He was once a player, and it's good to have that type of background. I certainly believe that he has some good tools to work with, particularly on offense. But he has generated, interesting enough, a great defensive team that has some enthusiasm, and I think they're going to create a lot of great plays. They did last night, and at the same time, I think when you look at giving Cousins more confidence as a leader, it's incumbent that Cousins has followers, just like this new head coach. You can't be a leader unless you have followers, and I think he's created a culture that's good enough at this particular time where the players believe in him.
And Leo, let's go back in time. Let's go way back to when you played. What are
Wow,
some
that's a long
memories?
time ago, man.
What are some of your favorite memories of wearing the purple and being a
Uh,
Minnesota Viking?
Well, I tell you what, it starts with the locker room. Great guys to play with. I think again, you can't be a team without really believing in each other. And fortunately, I played with a Hall of Famers, All Pro players. We had in the '80s, we had a lot of talent. We just couldn't play against some teams who had even greater talent, and it was incumbent of us to make the playoffs, obviously, which we didn't do much, but we had some players who went to the Pro Bowl quite a bit, and now are Hall of Famers. What the players that come to mind, certainly Chris Carter, Randall McDaniel, John Randall, Chris Dolman, Joey Browner, Steve Jordan. I mean, just great guys too, and great to play with. I was fortunate too to play 11 years for the Minnesota Vikings, and had my niche. Believe it or not, I didn't return punts until I was 30 years old, and became the punt returner for a significant number of years later in my career. But I played wide receiver most of the time and didn't play special teams at the first 5 years of my career with the Vikings. And that's a long time ago, so people don't remember that. But I was able to diversify, my talent on the team, and to help where I could. And certainly with that, at that particular time, the new players, Jake Reed, Chris Carter, and Anthony Carter, ended up playing well into the '90s, obviously. And I was just very fortunate to be able to stay with the club as a scout, and with the new emerging player development program.
Yeah, so talk about the player development stuff. Yeah, like you've been around this. Why is that so important? Because when you think about culture, and Kevin O'Connell now,
Hmm.
his culture is open door.
Yeah,
Every coach
yeah.
says that though, but I truly believe he wants to
Hmm.
merge the past and the present to understand the Minnesota Vikings history. If you go way back when to the 4 Super Bowls, all that kind of stuff, it can happen again. The Randy
Yeah.
Moss era of getting being dominant. It feels like it's close, like it feels like it's there. Just you're always waiting for
Yeah.
the other shoe to drop with the Vikings. I feel like kicker made a 56-yarder, so that felt weird.
Yeah.
It felt like a dream, almost like that was too good to be true. Did it really happen? But when you think about developing these players off the field, on the
Hmm.
field, whatever it might be, mentally, spiritually, physically, whatever it is, why is that player development piece so important when you look at players that leave programs and don't have the after playing success that a guy like
Hmm.
yourself has had?
Well, I think it's really incumbent of leaders to be able to know who they're leading. And one way you get to do that is to have conversations with them, and just not give out commands and orders and expect them to jump and do what you ask them to do. Because certainly your position depends on it as well. So I think that's one of the things that I learned really early. I think Denny Green was probably the first coach that I worked for that encompass giving players a voice, giving players an opportunity to express their opinions on and off the field, and to be able to incorporate that in the mission of the team, and have that as a focus, so that players understand that they are valued on the team, and that they're just not commodities. So I think one of the things that is incumbent of coaches today is that they allow their players to be themselves, to have an opinion, but also to understand that the team is the most important entity out there, and their individual opinions, although they're valued, they have to really mesh into the focus of team unity.
And when you see Justin Jefferson, so going back to that, and you look at yourself,
Yeah,
when you see this offense, if there were a
yeah.
person that can go back in history and come back and say, "Hey, Leo Lewis, hey, Minnesota
Hmm.
Vikings, here's the offense you guys probably would run that would take the NFL by storm." What could you see yourself doing as a slot receiver in that type of
Yeah.
offense now?
Well, I think it's amazing how Jefferson is used in various capacities, and that he can be an outside receiver. He certainly can be a slot receiver. You know, uh, the thing about me is I wasn't as quick up the field, but I was able to get open early on in the pattern, and so I was always in motion. I was in the slot much more because at that particular time you can go either way. You can go left or right
Mhm.
in your route, and you didn't have as much limitation based upon the out of bounds line. So that helped me. But this guy's so complete. Jefferson's so complete now that it's important for the Vikings to make sure that he is included in every play, whether it's a running play or not, because the defense is always watching him. So he can
Mhm.
be more of a decoy and have the Vikings be successful in their running game and other pass plays that would be helpful as well. No different than Randy Moss was. Certainly I believe Randy was much better because he could return punts and kickoffs. He could pass the ball. He could do everything at his stature as well. But both of these guys have that ability to um, uh, get open, uh, be able to be creative in their routes. And the passing game nowadays allows that because I think you pass first and run second, as far as I'm concerned.
And so today's defense, they're limited to what they can do to a receiver at the line of
Yeah,
scrimmage. You remember back in your day, it was you could beat the crap out of
yeah,
a receiver. And I'm just going back. I'm
correct.
looking at like the 1980, 1981, 1982 Vikings seasons and when they crossed paths with the Steelers. This one's always
Uh-huh.
good for me because I know Mel Blunt. My dad was a
Yeah,
cornerback
yeah.
there. So like looking at 1980, I mean, it's funny too, like being a part of your golf tournaments and Greg Coleman's golf tournaments, like the names I'm seeing on here are like everybody that comes to those golf tournaments. And I'm like the Viking starters. You got Tommy Kramer, you got Ricky Young, Ted
Yeah,
Brown, Amar Rashad, Sammy White. You got who else is on here? Wes Hamilton. You got
correct.
Ron Yari. You go all the way down. You got Kurt Noff at safety. You got John Turner at corner.
Hmm.
You got Scott Studwell, Matt Blair. Man, this is crazy. James White. And then you go over
Yeah,
to the Steelers. I mean, these are guys I was born in 1980. So these guys were
correct.
around when I was born. You got Mike Webster, you got Larry Brown, you got Lynn
Yeah.
Swan, Franco Harris, Terry Bradshaw. You go down to the defense, you got L.C. Greenwood, Joe Green, you got Jack Ham, Lambert, Robin Cole. Robin Cole, he used to come to Detroit and hang out with us
Hmm.
every summer. I don't know why, but I guess him and my
Okay.
dad became really good friends.
Yeah.
So Robin Cole would bring his family and they would come to Detroit for the summer and work out my dad, him.
Hmm.
Lynn Swan would come down there. Mel Blunt would drive down to Detroit just because my dad was known for doing crazy workouts. And so,
Yeah.
and Detroit, I guess back then, Detroit, and it still is to me, Detroit was probably a great place to hang out for black people, to be honest.
Hmm.
Let's be
Hmm.
real. Like
Hmm.
it's still one of the most heavily populated African American, communities.
Yeah.
And so Detroit probably was cool for these guys to get to and, hang out, be in Detroit as pro players. Jerome Bettis does that. He goes back to Detroit and does a
Yeah.
deal and he brings all the like players that he knows to hang out in Detroit and work out with him. But my dad, Mel Blunt, Donnie Shell, Mike Wagner. So when you think about those Steeler battles, because I've talked to Greg Coleman about this, I've talked to Amar Rashad about this, I've talked to Mel Blunt. He's come on to K-Fan with me and talked about this. What
Yeah.
do you remember? Because that steel curtain, they used to beat people up. Like my dad
Yeah.
told me he would kick my if I played against them. Like they
Yeah.
said they were legally allowed to punch me in the head, clothesline me. What do
Uh-huh.
you remember? Not just them though, but what do you remember about defenses like that back in your day?
Yeah. Well, I named off a lot of good Viking players, and we had a lot of talent, but we weren't at that level. That the Steelers at that time, the 49ers, Dallas,
Mhm.
Oakland, the Oakland Raiders. we didn't have talent like they did. And plus they had, they were in the Super Bowls on a regular basis. So
Yeah.
what I would say though is that yes, they would beat us up at the DBs would beat us up at the line of scrimmage, but I'm not so sure that's any different than what they're doing nowadays. I think you see a lot of grabbing downfield, certainly some hitting and grabbing at the line of scrimmage. But one of the things is that I grew up looking at these guys, particularly the Steel Curtain in the '70s when they were more prominent and certainly had an opportunity to play against the 49ers and the Oakland Raiders and the Dallas Cowboys when they were in their heyday. So
Hmm.
I would say that they just had a little bit more talent than we did, and it was very difficult playing them on a regular basis and defeating them. So consequently, you see all these guys in the Hall of Fame.
Right. Yeah, and so when my dad passed 2018, my godfather Mel Blount, he came to the funeral, and
Yeah,
I still haven't posted the
yeah,
picture yet. I'm still getting through that, but eventually I'll post
right.
some pictures from it and all the guys. I mean, seeing Franco Harris there and Donnie
Hmm.
Shell and all
Hmm.
those guys and JT and Woodruff, everybody came. Mean Joe Green. All the way down to what's his name, Frankie Fuqua. It was just funny hearing that story of the
Yeah.
Immaculate Reception, seeing him and Franco together talking about the
Hmm.
Immaculate Reception. And I'm like, man, I grew up watching this on ESPN because when I
Right.
was young, I didn't understand that. I didn't know what happened then. But now,
Oh, of
being a high
course,
school
of
football
course.
player, I'm like, man, this is crazy. And Mel
Hmm.
Blount and I are eye to eye. Like Mel is 6'3",
Okay.
6'4", legit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you see a corner like that across from you
Hmm.
at that
Yeah.
height,
Yeah.
like what is your thought? Because you don't see a lot of 6'3", 6'4" corners anymore. Like
No.
what was your
No.
thought of how do you defeat that?
Yeah. I mean, you can't. I couldn't defeat a DB that tall physically. So someone like me, and you see it nowadays, some of these smaller receivers,
Yeah.
we're put in motion so that we can get a running start when the ball snaps, and
Yeah. Yeah.
we run deceptive plays like reverses. Um, and run a lot of cross plays when we go across the field and cause it either interference or a distraction. Most of us are fast, so we're either a decoy by sending the defense further downfield to cover while someone catches underneath. So those are the types of plays that you find nowadays as well. I mean, but everyone does that. Tall and short receivers, or fast or slow receivers. So um, is it incumbent to just have speed and no hands? No, not necessarily. But to be a complete wide receiver, I think you need to have some certainly sports IQ, good hands, and to be durable.
And last one before we get to the daily three, that's going to be 3 questions, 3 minutes each. We're
Yeah,
going to both take about a minute and a half on the question. But before we jump in that, one last one, because you've played for some great coaches. When you look at the coaching staff for the
yeah.
Vikings from 81 to 89, you had
Hmm.
Bud Grant. Then you had the weird Les
Yeah,
Steckel year. And then you had Bud Grant
yeah.
again. And then you got Jerry Burns. What do you remember
Correct.
about those coaches?
Well, it's as I reflect on my career, um, it was fitting to be able to coach. I mean, be able to play for Jerry and Bud because both of them had legacies with my father. When my father was a professional player, Bud certainly played with my dad up in Winnipeg. Both of them were NFL draftees and ended up playing in the CFL most of their career. Then Bud coached my dad for 10 years before he came down to the Vikings. So, our family has had that type of relationship with the Grant family and now it's spanning over 60, 70 years, And, at that particular time in the 1950s, Jerry Burns and Bud were friends. And Jerry would always come up to the CFL when Bud was a head coach and be what you call a guest coach during the preseason before the college season started because Jerry Burns was an Iowa head coach and assistant
Mm-hmm.
before he went to the NFL and coached for the Packers. Eventually, those two would come back and have a reunion when Bud came to the NFL. and Jerry coached for Bud after being in Green Bay Packers' first two Super Bowls. So there's this legacy of football that eventually has connected with me and my family. Lo and behold, Bud would hire me, even though he cut me my first year. He kept me on as a Vikings receiver and special teams guy, and the offensive coordinator was Jerry Burns. So he and I had a special relationship as well.
That's cool, man. That's a cool story. That's it's awesome when you hear those stories because that's things that you don't always get to hear. So I'm glad we got it on the Ron Johnson
Yep.
show. But up next, we got the Daily 3. That's 3 questions, 3 minutes each. Let's take it away, Sam.
All right, I want you both to put on your offensive coordinator's hat and think about what you saw on the field yesterday with Kevin O'Connell. Ron, we'll let you start. What struck you about Kevin O'Connell's play calling? Doing it for the first time in a regular season setting. What'd you like about it?
Well, I talked about this in the open. The thing I like most, and I'm not going to get into the weeds about because I've already dealt with it in the open, and basically I already talked about the splits and the cool things I saw. But this is the thing I like about the play calling. It was precise, meaning he got them to the line of scrimmage with enough time to run 4 to 5 motions and shifts at sometimes. So that means there was a loose huddle where I love that the line always is looking forward. So they're listening to Kirk Cousins. So when you have to look forward and listen, you're a little bit more attentive versus just you're bent over, you're staring at your quarterback, and maybe you're not paying attention to what he's saying because you're watching what he's doing. They have to be very attentive and have their ears open and listen to what he's saying. And so I like the way the huddle was, where the offensive line is looking forward, they get a chance to see the defense get set. So when they come to the line, it's not a surprise. They already see the guys lining up. They already know that the changes the defense has made. I like the fact that he went tempo. We've talked about that with the Vikings in the past, that when they went tempo, it seemed unorganized. Like it seemed very organized with their tempo, meaning when they went no huddle, it was Kirk Cousins' show, but he had 1 to 2 plays in his mind because you can hear him kill the play, meaning I got 2 plays when I come to this. So it looked like they've planned and worked on this. Like, hey, when we go hurry, 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 either kill it to a run or run that pass. And so I love the way, because I know Peyton Manning did that with the Colts. He would give them 2 plays in the huddle. He would say first play is whatever trips left, Z go. And then he'd say play 2 is trips left, Z over. If he kills it, he's just killing to a run play. But I love the precise efficiency of getting to the line of scrimmage. That was great. Like that was the biggest thing. I think at times it felt like some of the delay of games or Kirk didn't have enough time and he was clapping his hands like, Herb, give me. There was no time where he felt hurried to get the snap. Like they always had enough time in the clock. So I love that.
What do you think, Leo?
Well, certainly they were very, very efficient. So I would have to, give O'Connell some perks on that, because I think he knows what he's doing. I think he's got the right tools, the right players in the right spot, and you didn't see a lot of that hesitancy. I thought the running game, although it complemented the passing game, could have been much more efficient. But you didn't need to when you can make big plays with Jefferson down the field. And we were fortunate, and the defense came upon a lot of great plays, which kept the score down. So I think the play calling, again, was efficient. It looked like they knew what they were doing. Kirk Cousins gave me more confidence in this game than he ever has. And I think it's a good way to get started in the season with 17 more weeks to go. Ron knows, once teams have several game film on you, they're going to hone on some of the things that you do well and try to stop it. So the evolution of that is that, they can be more efficient.
Yeah, I mean, other than a couple delay of game calls, they barely had a penalty on offense either. Just super clean all the way through. All right, a couple old teammates of yours, Leo, have Vikings receiving records. Sammy White, he's got the regular season single game record, 210 yards. Anthony Carter, he's got the postseason record, 227 yards. And Justin Jefferson gave him a scare yesterday, but he didn't break it. Leo, I'll let you start. Do you think that Sammy and Anthony's records are in jeopardy with this guy, Justin Jefferson?
Well, if this first game is any indication, yes, they have the potential to blow those records away. I think one of the things that we have to understand, they're passing the ball more, so the potential of gaining more yards during the game is going to be there. I mean, those are outliers, the way Sammy and Anthony performed on those days where they broke the record. I mean, Anthony was certainly in his playoff game against the 49ers. It was just his day, and I didn't play when Sammy had the record of 210 yards, but he was the man. Sammy could do anything that you wanted him to do, and I think they rewarded it by getting the ball to him a lot.
I'm gonna say yes. Adam Thielen had 200 plus yards against the Packers. So, and not to say Adam Thielen is lesser of a receiver than Justin Jefferson. Adam Thielen did it in an offense that wasn't like geared to like be his thing. Justin Jefferson, this offense is geared. This is a Cooper Kupp style offense. Kevin O'Connell talked about that in the past. Everybody was confused. If you watch his routes, Justin Jefferson has so many choice routes. It is crazy. It's like walking up to a menu and just saying, safety's high. I'm going to break it off. Safety, okay, you want to play behind me? I'm going to take it high. Oh, okay, linebacker, you're outside. I'm going to break in. All right, linebacker, if you're just going to sit here, I'm going to run an out route. My quarterback has the arm strength to throw an absolute laser right past you. And I know we're on the same page. And I talked about that in the Vikings pregame show on Fox, that you have to understand how the Rams screwed up. The Rams screwed up because of choice routes and not being on the same page, whether Matthew Stafford had a hangover from the Super Bowl champagne, who knows what, but the Rams weren't on the same page. And they were like, he threw an out route one time, guy broke in. He threw an in route for an interception. You saw the tight end breaking out. So either the receivers are wrong or the quarterback is wrong. And then that's up for the coaches to figure out when they watch film. Leo knows that. So when I saw the Vikings, every out route Justin ran, Thielen or Kirk was on it. Every in breaking route, Thielen was on it. Like it was poetry in motion. And so yes, it's in jeopardy. Justin's gonna have a Jamar Chase game coming soon. I don't know against who. Maybe the Lions, but because the Lions gave up 38 to the Eagles, and that offense was just okay with a running style quarterback. You put Justin Jefferson against some of those teams that can't stop that. Yeah, he's going to get 240, 250.
Ron, you just mentioned the Eagles. So with our final question of the day, I want your best 90 seconds on what the Vikings face next Monday with this Philadelphia team and Jalen Hurts and a running quarterback, much different than Aaron Rodgers yesterday. Ron, we'll let you start.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Hurts, the one thing we've talked about is RPO offense, and the Eagles did it phenomenally when they had Carson Wentz at his height. The height of his career, he was great when he first came out. He got hurt, and I think he got tentative with wanting to run. Jalen Hurts is not tentative at all. So what he does, he puts pressure on the defensive ends to contain. And so you think about Danielle Hunter and za'darius Smith and how they were able to contain Aaron Rodgers. There were times where Jordan Hicks was the contain guy in the flat. They're going to use Brian Asamoah at some point in that capacity as well with Jalen Hurts because he can actually really get moving. And so when you think about that defense with Ed Donatel, I don't care if it's Danielle Hunter, Jordan Hicks, Eric Kendricks, he always had somebody containing the play side, if you want to call it that, quarterback. And then they trigger because meaning if I'm covering the tight end and I'm contained and the tight end is blocking, I can trigger late. And that's what that big hit was on Aaron Rodgers. When he turned his back to Hicks, he thought Hicks was going to be in the flat covering the tight end. Hicks triggered late. Aaron Rodgers never saw him coming and blasted him in the back, hit him into Danielle Hunter. So with the Eagles, they have to keep Jalen Hurts in the pocket. I mean, I think that's where he can't hurt you. He can beat you, but he can't hurt you from the pocket. But when he gets outside of your contain, that's when that A.J. Brown second play, that's when he's moving around. But again, they put up 38 points on the Lions. The Lions put up 35 points on them. So we don't know if that's just two bad defenses and two really good offenses or vice versa, just two teams just like, hey, let's just see what happens. Let's just go out here. But no, it wasn't like an exciting offensive performance. It was just, I think DeAndre Swift had 14 or 15 carries for like 100 plus yards on the Eagles. So with this Eagles team, I think that's it. You're going to have to take the good with the bad. This defense, though, I think they can slow down Jalen Hurts no problem. And I don't think their defense, they can stop DeAndre Swift. I don't think they're ready for the two-headed back, because it looks like now it's 2-1. They're going 2 series with Cook and then 1 with Madison. He's getting the entire series. He's not spelling Dalvin Cook like he did. They're doing it more Rams-ish. So, yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that. And I took Leo's time, so Leo, you can keep going after the buzzer.
No, it's all right. I haven't seen Philadelphia that much, but I know with Swift from Detroit gaining 144 yards, it may be a good time for us to shore up our running game, and it might be a game where we run in order to pass this time. But it's no doubt that if we need to improve and to look at each game on its own merits, I like Dalvin Cook to be a little bit more involved. But it's no doubt that JJ is going to have an opportunity to have a good game and be the filler.
Yeah, you can keep going though, Leo. What else you got?
Well, and then also, you have Mr. Thielen has an opportunity as well. I mean, I think they have so many weapons that they're just going to have to analyze from week to week what's going to be the best way to attack the opposing team's defense. And it looks like Philadelphia, it's all comers. I mean, they're just going to have to pick their way to score because I don't think they're strong in any fashion that's going to be an alert for our team.
Yeah. Well, that'll do it for the Ron Johnson Show today. I want to thank Leo Lewis for joining me. If you haven't seen the first segment, please go back and watch that. It was a great open. Talked a lot about this Viking offense, Kevin O'Connell's new era. What do we expect? But Leo Lewis did a great job today. Please, please continue to download, subscribe, listen, like, share, comment. Let us know what you think. Is Leo Lewis right? Is Justin Jefferson going to break the records of his teammates? Is Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen going to have one of the most prolific seasons under Kevin O'Connell? Is this culture change? Does this help Kirk Cousins mentally? Because it seems like it has. But please continue to like and share. And remember, this is the Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcast Network. This is a Ron Johnson Show. I want to thank you. Have a great day.